My name is Chloe Bennett, and I am 21 years old living in the beautiful and humid city of Savannah, Georgia, where the Spanish moss hangs from the oak trees like heavy gray curtains, and the history of the South is etched into every cobblestone street. I have always been the kind of person who wears her heart on her sleeve, and I pride myself on being the most loyal friend anyone could ever ask for, because I believe that in this world your word and your friendships are all you really have at the end of the day. My best friend forever was a guy named Sam who is 20 years old and stands about 6 feet tall with a personality that used to light up a room. But looking back, I realize it was more like a flickering candle that was eventually going to burn the whole house down. Sam and I met in high school, and we were inseparable from the start because he was going through a lot with his family, and since he came out as gay, his parents had been very cold to him and eventually kicked him out, so I stepped up to be the sister he never had. I spent years defending him and helping him and making sure he always had a place to go or a shoulder to cry on, because that is what you do for the people you love. Sam was living in a big shared house with a bunch of other renters about a month ago, and things seemed to be going okay for him until one night when my phone started buzzing on my nightstand at 3 o'clock in the morning. I answered it and heard Sam hyperventilating on the other end of the line, telling me that he had woken up to find a strange man who was a new renter in the house standing in his bedroom. He told me the man had got handsy with him, but was not violent and had eventually left after Sam told him to get out, and Sam claimed he must have forgotten to lock his door, which was something he said he never did. I was absolutely terrified for him, and I told him he needed to call the police immediately, but he refused, saying he did not want to cause a scene or upset the other people in the house so late at night. I told him he had to tell the landlord or his housemates, because if he did not say something, the guy was going to think he could get away with it again, but Sam was very hesitant and said the man had left a note and a pair of shoes in his room for some reason. I told him to take pictures of everything and keep the evidence, and he told me there were even cameras in the kitchen that would show the guy coming and going from the hallway. I offered to let him come stay with me right then or stay on the phone, but he said he was okay, and then the next day he acted like it was no big deal, which I thought was just a trauma response, because I know how people can shut down after something scary happens. A few weeks went by, and then it happened again, where he said he forgot to lock the door, and the same guy came back into his room and refused to leave for a long time. Then last week, I got the most devastating phone call of my life, where Sam was crying and saying he was at the hospital getting a physical exam for sexual assault and that he had to make a statement to the police. He told me he could never go back to that house again and asked if he could stay with me, and of course I said yes, because my heart was breaking for my best friend who had just been through the worst thing imaginable. We agreed to meet at a park outside of my father's house so I could bring him back to my place, and I was a complete nervous wreck as I waited for him because I expected to see a man who was broken and bruised and crying. When Sam pulled up and got out of his car, he looked perfectly normal, and he just said hi to me like we were meeting up for a casual lunch, and he did not even want a hug when I reached out for him. I was so confused, and I asked if he was okay, and he actually laughed a little bit and said he was fine, which felt so weird to me given what he had just told me on the phone. We sat down, and I told him I would act like I was in a good mood if he was, and he laughed again and asked why I would not be in a good mood, and I had to remind him that I was devastated about what had happened to him. He started telling me the details of the story and said that it happened the night before, but he still went to work the next morning and only reported it because his boyfriend told him to. He said he went to the police, but decided not to press charges and signed a paper saying it would not be investigated further by the state, which sounded very strange to me because usually the state takes over in those cases. He said the exam at the hospital did not include a test for diseases, and he was not worried about it, even though he claimed the attacker had finished inside of him, and he said he did not even know the man's name, but that the guy lived in the house with his sister. Sam stayed with me for a week, and I treated him like royalty by buying him food and giving him a place to sleep and offering him anything he needed, while he prepared to move across the country to live with a guy he met online and had never actually seen in person. On the Friday morning after he left, I went to the bank to put $200 into a savings account, and when I reached into my small purse, where I had hidden the money, I realized that $100 was missing, and the purse had clearly been rummaged through. I knew it was not my siblings or my mother, and that left only one person who could have taken it, which was Sam. It was not even about the $100, because I would have given him all 200 if he had just asked, but the fact that he robbed me after everything I did for him made me feel sick to my stomach. I called him and asked if he had seen my siblings near my purse, and he got very quiet before saying he had not seen anything, but that it was weird the money was gone. I went to my auntie's house because I was so upset, and as we talked about it, we started realizing that none of Sam's story about the attack made any sense at all. I have experience with these kinds of sensitive situations, and I know that when someone goes through that they usually have a hospital band on their wrist, or they have medicine like antibiotics or painkillers. But Sam had none of those things, and he even refused over-the-counter medicine when I offered it. He was not limping or sore, and he had no bruises or cuts or defensive wounds on his hands, even though he is a 6-foot-tall man who should have been able to fight back. Plus, it seemed impossible that nobody else in the house heard anything or saw the man going into his room twice in one night. I started to realize that my best friend had lied about a horrible crime just to get sympathy and a place to stay, and then he had the nerve to steal from me on his way out the door. I felt like a fool for believing him, and I was filled with a cold rage that I had never felt before because he had used my kindness and my past traumas to manipulate me. I decided right then that I was not going to let him get away with it, and I was going to make sure he felt the consequences of his actions in a way he would never forget. I started by calling the landlord of the house where he used to live, and I introduced myself as a concerned friend, and the landlord told me that Sam had never reported any intruder, and that the cameras in the kitchen showed absolutely nothing out of the ordinary for the entire month. The landlord also told me that there was no man living there with a sister, and that Sam actually owed 2 months of back rent and had vanished in the middle of the night without paying a cent. Then I called the local police station and asked about a report filed by a man named Sam, and the officer told me that no such report existed and nobody by that name had come in for an exam or an interview. My heart was pounding as I realized the entire thing was a web of lies designed to make me feel sorry for him so he could use me as a stepping stone to get to his online boyfriend's house in Seattle. I knew Sam was currently on a long bus ride across the country, and he thought he was making a clean break, but he did not realize that I am a woman who knows how to use the internet, and I have a lot of connections in the community. I spent the next 2 days tracking down the online boyfriend, whose name turned out to be Marcus, and I found his social media profiles and even his place of work, which was a high-end tech company in Seattle. I did not want to just tell Marcus the truth, because I knew Sam would just lie his way out of it, so I had to be smarter than that, and I had to gather undeniable proof. I contacted the landlord again and asked if he would be willing to send me a copy of the security footage from the nights. Sam claimed he was attacked, and since the landlord was angry about the missing rent, he was happy to help me out. I also reached out to the hospital, and while they could not give me private medical records, they were able to confirm that no one by Sam's name had been admitted for a forensic exam on the date he claimed. I put all of this information together into a digital folder, including screenshots of our text messages, where he described the fake attack and the fake hospital visit and the fake police report. I also included a video I took of my purse being empty and the text where he denied stealing the $100, even though he was the only one in the house at the time. I waited until I knew Sam had arrived in Seattle and was settled into Marcus's apartment before I made my move because I wanted him to feel like he was finally safe and successful before I pulled the rug out from under him. I sent a long and very polite message to Marcus explaining who I was and how much I had cared for Sam over the years, but that I could not live with myself if I did not warn him about the kind of person he was letting into his life. I attached the folder with all the evidence, and I told Marcus to ask Sam to show him the police report or the hospital discharge papers if he didn't believe me. I also found Sam's mother on social media, and even though they did not talk, I sent her a message telling her exactly what her son had done and how he was using a fake story of a horrible crime to scam people out of money and housing. I knew that Sam valued his reputation more than anything, and he wanted everyone to think he was a poor victim of the world, so I decided to go one step further and post the truth on my own social media where all of our mutual friends could see it. I did not use his name at first, but I told the story of a friend who lied about sexual assault to get a free place to stay and stole money from a grieving friend, and within minutes people were asking if it was Sam. I did not have to say yes because the evidence spoke for itself, and soon people who had also lent Sam money or helped him out started coming forward with their own stories of how he had manipulated them. The feedback was like a tidal wave, and I could feel the power of the truth washing away the lies he had built around himself for years. About 4 hours after I sent the message to Marcus, my phone started blowing up with calls and texts from Sam, who was absolutely losing his mind and screaming at me through the phone. He called me every name in the book and told me I was a terrible person for trying to ruin his life, but I just stayed calm and told him that he was the one who ruined his life the second he decided to lie about something so serious. He told me that Marcus had kicked him out of the apartment, and he was currently sitting on a sidewalk in Seattle with all of his bags and nowhere to go because Marcus did not want to be with a liar and a thief. Sam tried to beg me to take down the posts and tell Marcus I was lying, but I just laughed and told him that I would do that as soon as he returned my $100 and paid the landlord the back rent he owed. He started crying and saying he had no money and that he was going to be homeless in a city where he didn't know anyone, but I reminded him that he was a 6-foot-tall man who was perfectly capable of finding a job and a place to live without lying to people. I told him that I was done being his safety net and that he had burned the only bridge he had left in this world. I hung up the phone and blocked his number, and then I blocked him on every single social media platform we both used. I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders as I realized that I was finally free from his drama and his constant need for attention and money. A few days later, I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Sam had to sell his laptop and some of his clothes just to afford a bus ticket back to Georgia, but he could not go back to his parents' house, and none of our friends would let him stay with them. He ended up having to stay in a homeless shelter in a different city because his reputation in Savannah was completely ruined and nobody wanted to be associated with someone who would lie about such a sensitive topic. I felt a little bit of guilt at first because I am a nice person, but then I remembered the look on his face in the park when he laughed at my concern and the way he reached into my purse to steal from me while I was sleeping. I realized that the poetic justice was that he was now actually in the situation he had pretended to be in, which was being alone and scared and having nothing, but this time it was his own fault and not the fault of some imaginary attacker. I used the other $100 I had to take my auntie out to a nice dinner at a seafood place on the riverfront, and we toasted to the truth and to moving on with my life. I learned a very hard lesson about who to trust and how to set boundaries, but I also learned that I am much stronger than I thought I was, and I will never let anyone use my kindness against me ever again. The humidity in Savannah still feels heavy, but the air feels a lot cleaner now that Sam is not breathing it, and I am looking forward to a future where my friends are actually my friends and not just parasites looking for a place to latch on. I still see people talking about it sometimes, and they all say the same thing, which is that they can't believe they almost fell for his act, but they are glad I spoke up when I did. Sam tried to make one last desperate attempt to contact me through a fake account on Instagram a few weeks ago, saying that he was sorry and that he had changed, but I didn't even read the whole message before I hit the block button again. He is a part of my past that I have buried under the red clay of Georgia, and I am never going to dig him up again. I have started volunteering at a local center that actually helps victims of the crime he lied about, because I want to make sure that my energy is going toward people who actually need help and not people who just want to exploit the system for their own gain. It feels good to turn something so negative into something positive, and it makes me feel like I have reclaimed my power from someone who tried to steal it. My life in Savannah is peaceful now, and I spend my weekends walking through the squares and enjoying the sunshine without worrying about who is trying to scam me next. I am 21 years old, and I have my whole life ahead of me, and I am going to make sure it is filled with people who are honest and kind, and who would never dream of stealing from the hand that feeds them. The revenge was not just about making him suffer, but about making sure he could never do this to anyone else, and I know for a fact that his name is now a warning in our social circles. I am Chloe Bennett, and I am a survivor of a toxic friendship, and I am much better off now that the truth has been told. I sometimes wonder if he thinks about that $100 he took, and if he realizes it was the most expensive $100 he ever spent, because it cost him his best friend and his entire future. I hope he does think about it every time he has to find a place to sleep or a way to eat, because he needs to understand that actions have consequences, and you cannot build a life on a foundation of lies. The sun is setting over the Savannah River, and the sky is a beautiful shade of pink and orange, and for the first time in a long time, I feel completely at peace with myself and the world around me. I have my family and my real friends, and a heart that is still open, but a lot more careful than it used to be. Sam is just a ghost in a city full of them, and I am moving forward into the light. I think about how much energy I wasted worrying about his safety when he was never in danger from anyone but himself, and I have to laugh at how blind I was back then. It is a strange feeling to look back at someone you thought you knew and realize you were looking at a stranger the whole time. But that is the thing about people like Sam, because they are like actors who forget their lines the moment the audience stops clapping, and I am just glad I was the one who finally closed the curtain on his performance. I have a new rule for myself, which is to watch what people do instead of just listening to what they say, because the truth is always in the actions and never in the excuses. My auntie told me that I did the right thing by exposing him, because people like that rely on the silence of their victims to keep their games going, and by speaking up, I broke the cycle. I am proud of myself for standing up for what is right even when it was painful, and even when it meant losing someone I thought was my brother. Life is too short to spend it on people who do not value you, and I am going to make sure every day from now on is spent with people who make me feel safe and loved and respected. Savannah is a city that knows how to keep secrets, but this was one secret that needed to be shouted from the rooftops, and I am glad I was the voice that did it. I can see the lights of the bridge twinkling in the distance, and I know that there are so many more adventures waiting for me that don't involve fixing someone else's self-inflicted problems. I am free, and that is the best revenge of all. The story of Sam and Chloe is over, but the story of Chloe is just beginning, and it is going to be a great one because it is built on the truth. I will always remember the lessons I learned this year, and they have made me a wiser and more grounded woman who knows her own worth. If Sam ever decides to actually change his ways, I hope he finds a way to be a better man, but I will not be there to see it, because I have moved on to better things and better people. The moss on the trees will keep growing, and the river will keep flowing, and I will keep living my life with my head held high and my heart full of genuine kindness for those who truly deserve it. I think about the many nights I stayed awake wondering if he was okay, and I realize now that I was the one who needed to be okay, and now I finally am. The silence from his end is the most beautiful sound I have ever heard, and it is a reminder that I don't have to carry his burdens anymore. I am going to enjoy this Savannah night, and the many more that will follow it, and I am never going to look back at the shadow he tried to cast over my life. This is the end of his influence and the start of my true independence, and I have never felt more alive. I have taken my life back, and I have made sure that justice was served in a way that was fair and final. Sam can stay in the past where he belongs while I walk into a bright and honest future. I am Chloe Bennett, and I am finally done with the games and the lies and the theft of my spirit. I am happy, and I am whole, and I am surrounded by the truth, and that is all I ever wanted. I will keep my purse close and my real friends closer, and I will never let another parasite take a bite out of my life again. The air in Georgia is sweet tonight, and the world is wide open for me to explore, and I am going to take every opportunity to be the best version of myself without anyone holding me back. I have survived the betrayal, and I have come out the other side stronger and smarter and ready for whatever comes next. This is my story, and I am the one who gets to write the ending, and I think it is a very good one. No more lies, and no more Sam, and no more being a victim of someone else's greed. I am the hero of my own life, and I have saved myself from a person who never deserved my help in the first place. I am at peace, and I am powerful, and I am Chloe Bennett.